with. But I'm coming back because I want to talk to you a little bit about something really exciting I'm working on, namely this platform or this thing called the Law Entrepreneur Learning Community. But before I get into that, let me give you an update about some of the things that I've had to learn since the Law Entrepreneur Digital Summit. So as you might know, I did this thing called the Digital Summit in April, trying to figure out what it means to be a modern lawyer, what makes a modern lawyer modern. And over the last few months, I've had the opportunity to revisit those conversations and try and figure out what are the common themes that were coming out. And going into the summit, I had already come to the understanding that there were really 5 challenges to the legal profession. And so those 5 challenges are what I'm going to start with, and then I'm going to talk about what I learned from the summit, why one big takeaway that really is the reason of existence for the Law Entrepreneur Learning Community. So the first challenge that I realized going into the summit was the fact that we as lawyers are going to be facing increased competition in my decidedly old school way. And you and I both know that more and more lawyers are graduating into the profession, and we're facing increased competition not only from new lawyers, but from existing lawyers deciding to expanding their practices. We're also going to be facing competition from new technologies that are coming in that are taking away little bits and pieces of work that we lawyers had a monopoly over. Of course, we in Ontario, we've got now paralegals likely to come in and taking on some of the work that family law practitioners were doing. So the first challenge that I identified was competition. The second challenge was the more for less dilemma. And the more for less dilemma is the idea that clients are increasingly becoming more and more sophisticated. And because they're more and more sophisticated, they're having a higher expectation of the work that we as lawyers are supposed to be doing. So simply put, we live in the age of convenience. We want almost instantaneous results. And you and I both know, if you're in the legal profession, that we can't always do instant results. Our systems aren't designed to work at the speed of light. But that doesn't mean that our clients aren't happy or are happy with that. They have higher expectations of us. And because of that, they want more value for less money. And that's a challenge for us lawyers, because unless we know how to provide that value, it isn't really easy for us to do. Which leads on to the third challenge, which is technology overwhelm. And again, the idea behind technology overwhelm is that we as lawyers, in order to provide more value for less money, we rely on technologies. Those technologies aren't always cheap. In fact, they're often expensive. And when they're expensive, sometimes we can disperse it onto our clients, and sometimes you can't. But the challenge of technology is more than that. The challenge of technology is the fact that technology is inherently expensive. And I used the example of the pen previously. So the idea is that the pen is the tool of choice for the lawyer. The great part about a pen is you buy a pen and you own the pen. You have ownership of the pen. And you don't need to keep paying for the pen on an ongoing basis. But we're now going into an age where the tool of choice that we're using is no longer a pen, but technology. And a technology that we're using over and over and over again and paying for over and over and over again on a monthly basis. Now, you can choose to implement technology yourself and try and use it effectively by yourself. But the challenge is that if you invest in technology and things go wrong, you don't use the technology effectively, at worst, you've got a bad business decision. At best, you've got a bad business decision. At worst, you've got a catastrophe, because in order to move technologies, it's another further investment to move away. A lot of tech companies lock you into contracts that you can't move away easily from. So that's a problem too. So again, the first challenge is competition. The second is more for less dilemma. The third is technology overwhelm. And because of all these three issues, you've got the fourth one, which is decision-making loneliness. When you're stressed out, when you don't know what to do, you don't have anybody to talk to, it's really hard to make a decision. It's really hard to make a decision on how to move forward. And in that vacuum of information, it's really hard to figure out what decisions need to be made, let alone what is the correct decision to be made. So that's a challenge. And all of these four components accumulate into the fifth challenge, which is the lack of mental health and work-life imbalance. The challenge that we're facing as lawyers is that there's so many things that we need to make decisions on that is causing us a lot of stress. And you and I both know that even pre-pandemic, lawyers had incredible challenges with their mental health. We are the highest risk of alcoholism, the highest risk of depression, anxiety, all that wonderful and good stuff. And what I realize is that without addressing these five challenges as a system and not individually, you're not going to be you're not really going to be an effective lawyer. If you don't have your mental health, for example, how in the world are we in a position to be really effectively advocate for our clients? And so these were the challenges that was going into the summit, 5 challenges. So the first, again, is competition. The second is the more for less dilemma. The third is technology overwhelm. Fourth is decision-making loneliness. And then the fifth is lack of mental health and work-life imbalance. What I discovered over the summit was something that basically unified it into one cohesive theory, in that the world is changing. The world was changing pre-pandemic, but as a result of the pandemic, those changes have accelerated. Whether it be how we do business, whether we moving from a paper-based system in Ontario to an electronic system, whether it be how we structure our business models. We as lawyers don't really have a lot of support to understand these things. But what we do know is because the world is changing, we as a profession also need to change with it. But in order to change with it, we need some support. And unfortunately, our existing institutions, whether it be our law schools or whether it be our employers or our professional associations, they do their best, but that best is not enough. There simply needs more support. And in that vacuum of support, we're not in a place to modernize our practices. We're simply not. And we're simply not in a place to design a practice modernization strategy, without which we can transition our practices to a new way of doing things. And that's given birth to this idea called the Law Tripreneur Learning Community. A learning community that is basically a supportive community to help lawyers move and adapt their practices from a pre-pandemic way of doing things to a post-pandemic way of doing things. Now, I've got so much more stuff to say about this. There's a lot of stuff I've learned over the last few months. But what I've realized over the last few months is that a community cannot be one person. It has to be a community. And so I'm putting out this video, and I'll be doing more videos over the next few weeks, asking for your help to fill out a survey. And it's on the link in the post somewhere. It's lawtrp.link/launch survey. And essentially, I want to hear from you. I want to hear from you, whether you're a lawyer or a law student, what are the challenges you're facing right now in your practice? And what are the supports you need? And over the next 3 or 4 weeks, I'm going to talk about different things that I see as an issue. And I want to hear your feedback. And whatever feedback you give, I want to use that as a way to introduce and shape what is coming in January, namely the Law Tripreneur Learning Community. In any case, that's all for now. I'll talk to you soon. Cheers.